All right, guys. Red Alert 2 World Series. It's happening. It's happening. We got another one here today. If you guys are catching us on Twitch, we're back-to-back games. We got games all day. I'm leaving town for a couple weeks. I'm getting my full barn burner fill right here, right now. If you're catching the highlight on YouTube, then you don't really know. You don't really know. You're just catching the segments. You should really come over to Twitch. I know I say that a lot. I always say to come over to Twitch. I know you guys are like, hey, I like YouTube. Ivor, don't push me out of my comfort zone. But it's a lot of fun. You come over live. We give out some cash prizes. We play crowd games. Anyway, let's focus on what we got going on here. We got Osama in yellow. He's out of, where is Osama out of? I always forget. Osama hasn't been around for a while. Anyway, Osama the Lag Dragon in yellow on the right side here. He's facing off against Zed, the Algerian warrior, in red on the left side. We are got a regular Red Alert 2. We are in the regular Red Alert 2 bracket here. Both these guys on the very far left side. They can win their way all the way through, though. Either of these guys could be dethroning Marco. It is a single elimination tournament, so if you want to win, all the way through, you got to win all the way through. No losing. Loser of this does go home today. Winner of this does go on. So, yeah, regular Red Alert 2. I really like this map. Actually, I think this map could be turned into a blitz map, actually. I like this map, though. I like these small maps like this. Red Alert 2, of course, guys, we've talked about before. Tanks build faster, so less likely to see players teching up, more likely to see players going right at each other early on. These players are picking their own factions, so Osama going Allied and going France here. I forget on my, you guys can't see that, but I'll let you guys know. Osama is France here, so maybe going to try to get a cannon walk in. These small maps like this, it's not about using the cannons defensively, it's about using the cannons offensively. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what he gets done with the France. Yeah, so you do start with a couple of oils. You start with an airport as well. Burke says, no thanks, I'm staying on YouTube. Okay. So yeah, the early pressure here from Zed, of course, as the allied player. Yeah, you don't want to let Osama get a foothold in the middle here. Now, this map does drive action towards the center, these juicy gems, and of course, just a tactical advantage of being in the center, being postured up, and being able to kind of control, particularly as the France player, because your cannons can just get so much value here. So defensive paradrop from Osama. He just needs to try to slow things down and get into the mid game here. Now, the cannons. You know, cannons as a turtle mechanic, when I grew up playing the game, we always said, like, no France, no Yuri, because, you know, cannons were used to turtle. Now, at the competitive level, when you're seeing France used by a pro player, generally it's actually an offensive move, and I actually consider it a bit of a gambit, and a fun gambit at that. Cannons are incredibly expensive, they suck power, and they do have a few different kind of Achilles heels. So I actually like the idea. I like seeing it at the top level. I think it's a fun way to kind of mix things up. So Osama out with his first cannon, but you look at his power plants, a lot of money, a lot of power plants that have to go into it, and so far not getting any value. Now, second cannon out. Now, that one's in a pretty good position. Zed's going to have to adjust accordingly and kind of respect this hold here, and Osama's going to look down to get a refinery and start getting on these gems right away, which will definitely give him value and kind of help fund this expensive habit that he's on right now of these cannons. So Osama pretty much with the ideal build here, and forcing Zed's hand. You know, when you're playing Red Alert 2 at the top level, it's not just about playing your game, it's about playing your opponent. As we talked about earlier today, Zed is a bit more of a builder, a bit of kind of a slower and defensive player. He does sometimes lack that kind of blood in the water shark mentality that is oftentimes needed. And in this case, you know, him sitting back against the France player could be tough. The V3 rockets are now out. You love to see it, boys. V3 rockets now getting used to take out that cannon. They will take down that cannon. I think 2 rockets will take it. Yeah, 2 rockets take it out, so it takes out 1 cannon. Again, those are quite expensive, so pretty good value there. But yeah, Zed, you know, Soviet versus Allied on a map like this against France, you know, if Zed sits back, it's just a little bit tough. He's going to go tech, so he's out with a battle lab now. The V3 rockets are a good counter. I'm surprised to not see Osama bringing out some anti-air. Any amount of anti-air would basically hard counter these. But the V3 rocket's not able to get much value. Now you're seeing Osama walk with the barracks. Barracks is a very cheap building, and it doesn't take much power. So if you're just trying to stretch yourself, it's a good way to do it. The forward Kirov, an excellent counter here. Both players playing a little game of rock, paper, scissors. The cannon comes, the V3 comes, he counters the V3s, the Kirov comes, and the Kirov extracting maximum pain. 5 Rockies chipping away and a couple IFEs. What's he going to go for here? Going to get a power plant as well? Oh, but this base walk is very, very difficult. That Kirov got good value there. But now what does Zed do? So Zed's just going to try to pull his attention away. And this is the big thing that you want to do. I mean, to try to just go at the cannons. I think this is a pretty good move here to try to make something happen on the backside. Try to pull Osama's attention away. But at the same time, this isn't going good for Zed because he's out-tanked. He's out-tanked and he's out-foddered. It's one thing to let the cannons get value, but to fall behind against the allied player on tanks and fodder, which is possible in Red Alert 2, with the build speed. You know, you do see players play Allied like this, but it's tough. I mean, it's tough. I think the big thing here would be to be trying to get value downfield, to just slow down. So to let Osama kind of walk through like this is just to be on your heels against a walking France is very, very difficult. Now the cannon's pummeling his base. Going to be a very, very tough one for Zedo to get out of here. Got to think the GGs are coming. I think Zed's going to wait for this Iron Curtain, see what he can get done. Osama dives on that nuclear reactor. That's a good move, trying to put him low power. Does go down. Now the Iron Curtain's not coming, and you expect to see the GGs here from Zed. First one on the board from Osama in fairly dramatic fashion. Look at Osama steals the oil. Stealing the oils. That's awesome. Yeah, is Osama from Jordan? I forget. Is Osama also from Jordan? Quas, Legend, Gene, and Osama? That can't be right. Yeah, it's fun. Well, that's why we call it the World Series, right? We got players from all over the world. There's actually very few. I feel like a lot of countries have like 2 players, right? Like Finland has... Oh, Finland has 3, right? Root, Marco, and someone else. Kintasha, maybe? Jordan has a few. Egypt does have a couple. Israel has a couple. I feel like most countries have a couple. There's a couple outlier countries that only have a couple. There's a few Dutch. There's a handful of players. Anyway, so over to Montana DMZ. This is best of 5. So this month for the map pool, we did a random group of maps based on we let all the pro players each pick a couple maps. Those maps went into the pool, and now we're picking them randomly. A lot of times you use the whole competitive map pool, loser picks. I don't know, you just kind of see the same maps. So I tried doing it this way, and literally we still kind of are just going to see the same maps. I kind of thought some of the pro players would mess with each other. Like Marco added Depth Charge, which is like a naval map that most players hate. I kind of thought the players would troll each other a little bit more, but they were all being too nice to each other, picking standard maps. So next month, the Mixed Faction Mega March Tournament, that's when things are going to get weird. We're going to have all brand new maps, force the players to play different factions, force the players out of their comfort zones to get a little weird for us. So stay tuned for March. We're going to have new maps, all the different factions. It's going to be a good one. Game Dev, and Taxary 200 with the follows. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Comrade, Sean says. So we are seeing Osama here with Allied and Zed with Soviet. Again, guys, this is just pick your own factions here. So it's always fun when you get a couple players who are playing different factions. I like a good Soviet versus Soviet, but it's fun to see Allied versus Soviet. I think in a lot of ways that's the way the game was meant to be played. So particularly in Red Alert 2, the way that Allied plays is so different than Yuri's Revenge. If you guys have been watching some of our Yuri's Revenge show matches lately, it's very common to see the Allied player go tech, go battle lab before even building any Grizzlies. Whereas in Red Alert 2, generally you do see Grizzlies kind of going a little bit more toe-to-toe with Yuri, thanks to that increased production speed of the units. So, yeah, we will see here. You know, in Osama, obviously it got massive value out of that the cakewalk. The cakewalk. That's what we call it now. Instead of a cannon walk, we call it the cakewalk. Osama got a cakewalk last. I'm going to call it a cakewalk. And you guys are going to be the only ones who are going to know why. Everyone's always like, what's it mean? Why does everyone call it a cakewalk when you walk the Grand Cannon? And you guys are going to be the only ones who know there was one time on a random Thursday that Ivor said cakewalk as an accident. And now it has entered into Red Alert 2 lore for the rest of eternity. Osama with an absolutely devastating cakewalk in the last point. Nice little backside paradrop here. Yeah, these maps where you start with an airport, Allied can definitely get some stuff done. The double paradrop's nice. Of course, remember, guys, Red Alert 2 GIs are about 80% worse than Yuri's Revenge GIs. They do struggle to get things done. But look at that. Even with their pistols undeployed, they take out a refinery. The Red Alert 2 GIs say, don't sleep on us. Who you calling weak, they say. They do take out a refinery. That's exactly what Osama wants here, getting some offensive value downfield while holding off the Rhinos on his doorstep defensively. Very, very nice defense and continuing to stretch a little bit as well, which is important as he starts running out of this gem patch. He wants to get down to this next ore patch. Of course, Zed here to deny that if at all possible. Zed now on 2 war factories, pumping the fodder and Rhinos to the front lines. Good economy here. You see the refineries all right off the patches. Paradrop backside, Rocky's there to defend. This would have been an interesting spot for a paradrop to fortify some of these buildings, try to pick on that refinery. Going at the MCV is pretty tough. You'd have to be really sleeping at the wheel to lose a MCV to conscripts. I probably could pull it off, but most people would not let that happen. Oh, fuck, wait, what was that? Damn it. What was that? What just happened? Damn it. I don't know. Look at this defense. Look at these G-highs, these pillboxes. Oh my god, Zed, yeah. Zed could just go around this. Certainly don't attack straight into this, whatever you do. What exactly just happened right here? Was it a paradrop again? Maybe another paradrop. Paradrop's getting so much value from Osama, and doing that, well, I mean, he can just hold the line back here. If he can keep getting value with his GIs, it's going to be pretty comfortable. Alright, so now we're going to start mining dirt here. Does want to get stretched up to that patch. He's on this one. It's still a pretty good economy. Both players sitting with money in the bank now. Is Zed going to adjust his attack? I think that's a good move. You saw quite a few static, well, only a few pillboxes there, but trying to move around, get away from the GIs and the pillbox is always a good move for the Soviet player. It'd be interesting to see a split here from Zed. I think Zed could potentially be looking to split. Massive amount of fodder here for Osama. Be interesting if Zed could maybe try to get a Desolator involved here to try to thin some of this fodder out. If you remove the dogs, so like if Osama didn't have dogs, these rhinos could be potentially looking to really extract pain right now. But it's a scary amount of fodder. Not having any Desolators is tough here. Yep, and so yeah, trying to get him a little bit out of position. Osama's fodder gets out of position there, and Zed, very, very nice execution. But Osama still has a ton of Grizzlies here, but it's not going to matter. Osama, that one's kind of hard to say. You'd have to go back and rewatch the replay of exactly what happened. You know, it goes a little bit both ways, though. Osama got himself out of position, but Zed did a really, really good job there. You saw all of Osama's tanks on the backs, dogs on the backside of his tanks, and Zed able to get in and just take out all those Grizzlies. But that was exactly what Zed wanted there. Got Osama away from his static defenses, got him away from his GIs, and was able to make him pay with his entire army. One misclick there, you know, you don't know, Osama might have been somewhere else downfield. One little bit of a misclick there, and Zed was right there to capitalize. Really, really well played by Zed. Allied versus Allied now, Lake Island. So this map's a little interesting. Now, I love the map. I love every single thing about the map, except a bit of the physics. And someone else pointed this out in chat for me. It doesn't really make sense. The water is running down towards the center. So the island would sink, I think. You know what I mean? I don't think this island, I don't think the physics of this don't make sense to me. I'm okay with everything else in the game. Like, I think everything else in the game makes perfect logical sense. But yeah, I think this map is kind of where I draw the line. The physics just don't add up. But beside that, it's an absolutely awesome map. It's really, really beautiful, really well done, and it does open up a lot of different plays here. So both players going to go Allied now. Marsh gets it. Marsh gets it. Yeah, that's where I draw the line, man. All the wacky stuff in this game, but this is the thing where I draw the line. Beautiful map, though. So both players, yeah, there is kind of that similar kind of fight towards the center. I like maps like that. You know, maps that force the action towards the center, they often result in faster games. And I think there's also kind of that feeling of, like, if you lose the center, if you lose, like, the maps that push you down, it's like both players go for it. If you lose it, it can be difficult to kind of get back in it. But at the same time, I think it does press the action a little bit. So, you know, usually maybe shorter games. But actually, this map, I haven't seen this map a ton. Yeah, you do. Yeah, it's meant to be built down towards the center. You get on those gems as well. And then Naval. Naval's viable here as well. Wait, Kokot, what? Maybe Kokot says there's a place in Croatia that's like this. Maybe we need to bite our tongues. Anyway, quick reminder, guys, if you guys are watching this and you're thinking, hey, this looks like fun, I'd like to join the fun, you should. RedAlert2.com. You can learn how to download and play the game. It takes about 15 minutes. You can sign up for the tournaments. You can join our Discord. Discord is like a free messaging community app. You can come in there. You can ask questions. You can drop memes. You can talk shit to other players. All sorts of fun stuff in the Discord. And if you're having issues getting things set up. But realistically, if you're watching this and you're like, I haven't played in 15 years. This was my favorite game from my childhood. I'd like to play. In about 15 minutes from this exact moment, if you go to RedAlert2.com, you could be set up and playing. You could join the community. You can play our tournaments. We have Division 5 for brand new players. It's lots of fun. We actually do have a nice growing community of new players right now. A couple guys have stepped up to the plate. We're going to get a new thing going, hopefully, like once a week where all the new players can come together, have a higher level player kind of teach them some tactics. They can play on a stream, do a little tournament, have some fun. So, again, guys, regardless of your skill level, come play. It'll be great. Join the Discord, RedAlert2.com for all those links. All right, now that I'm done with my info commercial, let's see what we got going on here. Both players with MCV moves here. Some interesting, parts of this map that make it difficult to walk. You know, some maps, the MCV move isn't required. On this map, though, it gets a little bit difficult with some of these water features. So faster just to move the MCV to get on those juicy, juicy gems. Paradrop backside does get cleaned up. Osama not going to let that happen. Zed, so Zed cleans up the paradrop as well. So no offensive value so far. Both players just loading their guns and sharpening their battle axes, preparing for war here as we move into the 3.5-minute mark, get into this mid game. Both players plenty of money in the bank. AFC out for both players. So very similar builds, both players on one War Factory. And it's so interesting, you know, the way these different maps play, when you look at the timestamps of different games, if you looked at the analytics, you'd see like each map, the timing is so different, and a big part of that is the gems versus ore. Gems obviously are like rocket fuel, kind of boosting your economy early on. So as a map maker, there's so many kind of nuanced things you can get into. You know, if you want to add gems, do you want the player to have to move their MCV? Do you want the players to battle towards the middle? If they get the middle, how much should their reward be? And of course, since gems don't regrow, you're kind of choosing like when the players get it, and if they get there, how much they get. It's quite an intricate puppet mastering art, map making. I've never made a map this big. I don't know how people do it. Really incredible. I make blitz maps and they take me like literally all of my free time. Okay. So, Zed here, this is tough. This bottleneck's tough. You really cannot attack uphill into a bottleneck like this, but I like that Zed's posturing up a little bit, getting a little bit of map control, and Zed now, the second MCV move, and Zed gets on another patch of gems, and you see that that will be a move that's going to pay some dividends here. Zed controlling the middle of the map, and then on the backside, just sweeping up gems anywhere he can. And you got to expect that to kind of benefit Zed's economy here. Second War Factory for Zed, second War Factory for Osama. So similar builds. So Osama walked down to this one. Oh, did Zed just walk? Wait, I'm mixing this up. Oh, Zed just walked down to the middle. He only had the one MCV move topside. So actually both players in a very similar position. Very, very similar position. Big engagement here, bottom side. Zed throws those Rockies in front. We'll see what he can get done with the Rockies, but Zed needs to be so careful in these kind of positions. If you get your units into a bottleneck or you get them coming around a corner, it can be devastating. Looks like Zed is going to be coming out on top here, and Zed has the wherewithal to keep his IFEs on the back line and take out those Rockies. Surprised to see Osama not try to dive on those, but he knows he's out tanked. Zed rolls. Think about that, Bird. All right, guys, over to point number 4 now. So Zed fighting to end things here, put a nail in the coffin, take home the win. Osama, well, fighting to give us a barn burner, fighting to stay in this series, and fighting to stay in the tournament. Again, guys, single elimination tournament here in the Pro Division for regular Red Alert 2. So Zed coming off a very, very decisive victory in that last game. And I think it's interesting, you know, Soviet versus Soviet. Well, it depending, I mean, the factions, but particularly when you have a mirrored faction. So we're going to see Soviet versus Soviet here. Again, these players are picking their own factions. The last point we saw Allied versus Allied. So you see a mirrored faction on a map that both players know, and both players go for the exact same meta, right? They did almost identical builds, identical orders, and those are the kind of games where when one player pulls out ahead, I feel like that's where you really feel it, you know? Because it's one thing to be like, oh, I went Navy SEALs, and or I pushed tech, you know, and he didn't keep up. Like, that's good. That's, you know, winning on tactics is good. But there's something, I think there's something to be said when you both are like, let's go same builds, dogs and tanks, let's go at each other, see who's the last man standing. So I think Zed's got to be feeling good after that last victory here. And should be feeling good, try to ride some momentum here and take home this series. But Osama's a tough player, man. Osama's a tough player. He, like I said, disappeared for a couple months. I think he's a little kid, not in a mean way. I think Osama's actually a little kid. And I don't know, maybe he got grounded or something. I don't really know. But he disappeared for a couple months. So Osama's back. And he hasn't taken long at all getting the dust shaken off here. And like Ed was saying the other day when we were streaming Osama, Osama's down. Like, well, when he's around. Like, you're like, yo, Red Alert 2, Yuri's Revenge, Blitz, you want to play Marco, you want to play, like, and you give him anyone on any game mode, he's down. And I like that. We need more players like that. So, Osama, yeah, if anyone can prolong this series, put on a good show for us, you got to think it's Osama. 5 miners out for Osama. The 4th for Zed now on the 5th. So Zed just moving a little bit slower right now. Zed did get droned, so that forcing to build the service depot. Even if you know the drone, even if you don't lose a miner, again that forced Zed to build the service depot. Theoretically slows him down a little bit. You see him coming out with the second war factory a little bit behind. These little things like that, they do make a difference early on in the game. It's pretty much all you're doing on these kind of bigger maps like this, where you have the time to go mass miners, massive economies early. The little drone action definitely makes a difference. So nice little stretch here from Osama. Zed keeping things a little bit tighter here, stretching down to that patch as well. Arabian Oasis. Some gems in the middle which can maybe potentially work towards here. I haven't seen this map played much. I forget who picked this one for this tournament. I don't think it's a quick match map. Yeah, isn't Osama so? Osama, yeah, I think Osama. I mean, Osama, I think is a pretty diverse player. I mean, obviously, we saw him with a cannon walk today. We've seen him playing Allied, and we also, yeah, I know he's a strong Soviet player for sure. But Osama's also a strong Yuri player. Obviously not in Red Alert 2, but in Yuri's Revenge, Osama is a strong Yuri player as well. So yeah, Osama definitely a diverse player. It'll be fun to see him next month in that tournament, the Mixed Faction Mega March tournament. It'll be fun to see. We got a handful of top level players. I was a little worried. Like some players won't play mixed factions. Kian claims he won't. Kian says he's only playing Soviet right now, but Kian will play. He's the Octo Kid. So Kian will play. Luke, so it's Yuri's Revenge, mixed factions. Luke can play all the factions for sure. Marco Legend, Osama, Zed can play all the factions pretty competitively. I think we're going to get Berg to come play. Ed's always down. Snark's always down. Loka can play them all. A Cruiser maybe as well. I think Cruiser can play all three factions. Big engagement here, bottom side, and Osama looking way ahead right now, and Zed catches himself out of position. Now trying to work his way into a retreat here. Does still have some fodder on the run. Can he reinforce this position? Get a sentry gun out and try to hold the line here. Osama, and a very, very nice retreat from Zed. Does put that sentry gun down, and beautiful map awareness there from Osama to realize he was about to go into a sentry gun, and he did not have the tanks for it. So now Osama going to readjust, head up to the top side, try to pick on some miners. Zed there to match. So yeah, Osama definitely came out a little bit ahead there, but Zed was able to retreat just in time. It's difficult to appreciate the razor-thin margins at the top level. One misclick in that position, if Zed's tanks would have retreated a little bit less effectively, he may have paid a lot bigger price there. 4 war factories for Zedo. 5 war factories for Osama. Osama, I think, with a slightly better, pretty similar base stretches here, and pretty similar. Well, so Zed does go that earlier 5th. Oh no, Osama has the War Factory advantage. Zed's broke. Osama has a War Factory advantage, and Zed's going broke. So some inefficiencies along the line. You see some of these miners might be over mining bottom side. You see them waiting for each other. You don't want your miners taking smoke breaks while they wait for each other to dump their ore. That's never good. So Osama, first one towards the center here. He's going to get on these gems and that forward war factory. Look at that forward war factory. The tactical advantage of pumping your reinforcements right to the front line cannot be understated. Oftentimes that's a defensive advantage, you know, pumping them onto your doorstep. But Osama reinforcing right to the front line. He does split off now. Bit of a split, and Zed doesn't adjust to the top side. Heavily out tanked now. The production that Osama has on the backside giving him massive value and just rolling through and just. All right, boys.
God, what a barn burner, boys.
Siberia with the perfectly redeemed barn burner. Legend would have been proud. Here we are, boys. Here we are, and what a day to be alive. We got match point. These guys going at each other, and this is it. We're burning barns, boys. Burning barns. Winner of this goes on in the tournament. Loser of this takes that sad walk home here. Yeah, so both players, I mean, we haven't really seen any massive blunders. We haven't really seen any steamrolls. Both these players have just been going at each other, and it just comes down to minor, really little decisions at the end of the day, kind of helping one player get a leg up and then capitalizing on that. So pretty straight up, good Red Alert 2 action. A lot of tier 1 tech kind of stuff. Haven't seen anything too crazy. We did start things off with the cakewalk. The cakewalk. That's what we call the Grand Cannon Walk now, the cakewalk. We did see a nice cakewalk from Osama, but other than that, pretty straight up RE2 action. Dogs and tier 1 tanks going right at each other. And of course, the macro on the backside, the build order, the build location, and who's able to get their money flowing faster, more war factories out. Of course, that's that's a big part of the game. Oh my God. Oh my God. Berg, is this one of your steroid-injected monkeys? Did Berg sneak one of his steroid-injected monkeys on this map? Berg, what have I told you about the steroid-injected monkeys? Berg, I've specifically told you to not put your steroid-injected monkeys on the map. Berg snuck that monkey in right underneath that tree to kill engineers. Clever, clever, clever Berg. Loses an engineer to the monkey, which I find to be absolutely hilarious. We do have note the dogs can't eat engineers. That's just a setting that is used oftentimes in Red Alert 2. The players, it's kind of funny. A good metaphor I like to use is like foot stomping in the UFC. So foot stomping is technically allowed in the UFC. Like once you're clinched up with someone, cage fighting UFC, if you guys don't know, you can stomp on the other guy's foot. The problem is there's not really a great way to counter this. So if you stomp on his foot, he's going to stomp on your foot. So in most UFC fights, both players don't stomp on each other's feet, and it's like this mutually agreed thing. Like, hey, let's just not stomp on each other's feet, because if I stomp on your foot and you stomp on my foot, then we're both going to break each other's feet, and then we're just going to have a cage match where we both have broken feet. So, I think it's a similar kind of thing with the engineers. It's like, let's just both agree that we can't eat each other's engineers because it's really annoying. And then we have to send like multiple engineers, send dogs to protect the engineers. And the first half of the game is us having Engie wars over the tech. So, dogs can't eat engineers. Engineers go on a death run. They grab the tech, and then we get into the real game. That's the idea. That's the idea. I know there's some hardcore old school players though who like that. They're like defending your engineer, like that's the game. But anyway, I digress. Okay. MCV moves from both players here, so Zed going right down to the gems. A little bit different strategy here as Osama heads across the top side. This map is actually fairly mirrored, but Osama delaying going down here. You will see his MCV up there if we get into a mid-late game, but for now going on the top side, stretching over to the right, getting on those gems. It's pretty much identical, right? Because, yeah, like this gem patch is essentially this gem patch. Although, wait, isn't it harder to build? No. Yeah, it's pretty much identical. I like this map. Does open up some cool kind of trick plays here with the tech in the middle. We've seen players capture this and then head straight over. Ed actually had a game. Ed, the wild card, he opened his production off the oil, fixed the bridge, and then Connie rushed Snark. It was a pretty epic game. Although Snark actually had his MCV down here and won the game. That was a really weird one. Yeah, really, really wacky. Okay, so here we go again. Zed edging in, and I like we talked about before, I like Zed getting out of his comfort zone, being the aggressor, and as the allied player, Zed, a defensive player by nature, with allied going at the Soviet player and pushing him around. I love to see it. I think Osama's kind of demonstrated that if Zed lets Osama have his way and get control, things can go from bad to worse in the late game. So I like that from Zed here. He's going to try to push him around a little bit. Desolator out to deal with these GIs. Zed could try to throw the GIs in that hut. Oh, Zed destroys the hut. Never mind. Desolator's on the run, pushing the fodder back now. 2 war factories, 3 war factories. Zed, money coming in. Osama, 4 war factories. Harriers out now for Zed. Gonna try to pick off those Desolators with that. The emergency room, a heart attack. That's a great story, man. That's actually a really interesting story. That's a good analogy for a lot of things in life, actually. That's a good one. Any of you guys who missed that one, I gotta say it again. So here's the thing. If the action starts, I'll try to get it in quick. So for a long time, when someone came into the emergency room, they'd be like, hey, what's going on? And people would be like, well, I have this, my arm tingles, my head hurts, and they'd give the doctor all this information. And they realized that doctors couldn't really figure out what was going on. They were getting too much information. So then finally, emergency rooms for heart attack protocols for prospective heart attack patients, they started asking just like 3 questions. Does your left arm tingle? Does your heart hurt? And are you obese, or something like that? There's like 3 questions. And with those 3 answers, doctors are better off making a decision than if they have those 3 and 10 more answers. Like, if you have too much information, you get paralysis by analysis and make the wrong decision on whether or not someone's actually having a heart attack. Now, you're thinking, Ivor, how does this relate to Red Alert 2? And I'll tell you right after this battle. So, Grizzlies and Dogs, Zed going broke here. So, Zed going broke, so might have a hard time reinforcing his position, but Zed's way ahead, I think. Zed's way ahead, but you never know in these positions. Oh, the Grizzlies are going to start popping. Look at all the smoking Grizzlies. Oh, I thought Zed was ahead there. He obviously did have the numbers, but of course, you have Rhinos, you can have less Rhinos, and of course, they're better than Grizzlies. Unfortunately, all smoking Grizzlies, and Zed's broke, so he can't keep pumping fodder to the front lines. Without fodder, Zed now on the run. Osama rolling through. Zed brings out the Prism Tower, so Zed just has to bait buildings now, let Osama take whatever he wants, but he cannot give up this last batch of tanks. The GIs in the hill, in the trees. Oh, Zed hesitates for a second. Not gonna matter. Zedo goes down. Osama takes it home. Yeah, okay, so the point is, if you give a doctor, so if you just answer those 3 questions, a doctor will then try to diagnose if you're having a heart attack or not. And a doctor is more likely to guess right, to decide correctly whether you are or not, based on those 3 questions, than if you give them those 3 plus 10 more. Because if you give them all that extra information, then the doctors are like, wait, this part doesn't add up, this doesn't make sense. And of course, they're ER doctors, so they got gunshot victims. And basically, the study found that less information, but the right information is more valuable. And the way that relates to Red Alert 2 I was talking about specifically is you have a couple different numbers to look at. And the 2 main ones are, how many total games have you played in your life? And that's the one everyone talks about, like, oh, he's been here for 20 years. But the big stat that you got to look at is how many games have you played in the last 4 weeks? And we were talking about this with Kian when he was rolling through for the World Cup. You know, we had Marco, who's been playing way longer, Marco the GOAT, you know, but Kian that month played 3,000 games. And so you had Marco, a more experienced experienced lifelong player, but you had Kian, who had significantly more games in the last 4 weeks. I think that's the stat a lot of players forget to look at. They look at a newer player, lifetime games versus games in the last month. Was any of that information needed? Probably not. Did you guys care? Probably not. Let's get the game going.